Hello, everyone. My name is Roberto Viana, and I am presenting my literature review, which is focused on the U.S. embargo on Cuba and the 6 decades of politics and history. Our class is special topics Latin American and Caribbean, and our professor Dr. Joseph Holbrooks. And like the title of this literature review and the future research implies, my main disciplines used are political science and social history. But of course, most of the time when we are discussing or researching political history, political science, we must discuss some economics. It's kind of inevitable. So we're gonna go through a little bit of economics too, and that region and the consequences of the embargo, the social consequences of the embargo. We gonna a good part of the literature discusses the legality of the United States sanctions against Cuba, also as the kind of unfair acts that were imposed to the island for the past 6 decades. I can give you like a few examples, the creation of the Cuban American National Foundation, the Cuban Democracy Act, the Helms-Burton Act, the U.S. Declaration of Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism, just a few of them, for instance. And unfortunately, they had main relevance for the emergency and the increasing of the impoverishment in Cuba imposed to the Cuban population. On our second slide, a little bit of comedy on that caricature, but that's one of the conclusions that most of the scholars that I researched they came up with, that even though that the world witnessed the collapse of the biggest historical symbols of repression, such as the end of the Cold War, and the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the entire population were probably expecting for the end of the embargo. The opposite happened. The embargo actually became stronger after the Cuban Missile Crisis, and after the decline, the collapse of the Berlin Wall, the decline of the Cold War, they just create like different acts to enforce the embargo instead of weaken it. That caught people actually, scholars studies the main population by surprise. We're gonna go through all the main sanctions that were implemented in a curiously way at the President's Kennedy mandate, especially because he was considered progressist. But of course, he wasn't expecting that the crisis would emerge in his government. So as a consequence, he had to impose severe sanctions that for many people were considered illegal against Cuba, involving especially trade and tourism in the island. I'm gonna go through my general interdisciplinary theoretical debate, which I'm gonna use, I'm gonna research a lot of issues with economic sanctions, diplomatic issues, international law questionings, especially the legality of the sanctions, social and economic factors, the Cuba's engagement with third world countries um, in order for them to achieve better economic results, especially with the decline of the Cold War and because they also lost the Eastern Bloc as main international trade tool. And we're going to also talk a little bit, research a little bit about the international organizations and their position um, towards the whole sanctions and embargo against the island. And this is more like going to my political science debate. We're going to expose like many aspects that combine with facilitated comprehension, which is kind of doable and questionable because it's definitely a very, very intense subject. And even though after researching 20 some articles and books, it's still very confused because there's so many different theories. Even one that is very controversial that Fidel Castro didn't really want the end of the embargo because somehow the embargo were economic for him, were working for him better than if they were without it. Maybe because Cuba was billed as a victim, and therefore he could get some more connections and some more trades from the international agencies. Than if the embargo didn't exist. That's one of the theories. This literature reveals we also analyze the diplomatic negotiations, especially from the former presidents Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama, because they kind of really try to accomplish some changes. Most of them really didn't. Obama actually did some, but it wasn't enough for the end of the embargo, unfortunately. Another highlighted theme will be involving diplomacy and foreign affairs, especially a theory of Dr. Gordon's concept of extraterritoriality, the US restrictions and the measures that require definitely the closest evaluation to ease the comprehension of that issue. And another relevant aspect of the embargo that really deserves to be analyzed is the foreign policies. They are actually more actual issue because most of the international organizations really going heavy on their conceptions that the United States are adopting, they adopted and maintained unconstitutional policies under the international law perspectives against Cuba. And this discussion has become more intense, especially over the past 5 years. And just going through my main focus, which is political science, and the main disciplines that I adopted for this study, which was political science and social history. And there is kind of a final question, but that really causes a lot of controversial if the US democratization process, it's really because they want to finally pursue freedom for Cuba, or it's just an imperialistic project. I have at least one book and 2 articles that really questions and debates the real intentions, because for most of the scholars, it's just a way to manipulate an entire population and make them to go abide the United States perspectives of freedom, which doesn't mean that it's the only right way to achieve freedom. It's under United States perspectives. Therefore, this democratization process is kind of questionable. And as a conclusion, I'm going to use an argument of another author that says that Cuba as a nation doesn't need a new system. Cuba needs to adopt to some more future agreements with a capitalist model. That way they could merge and become more inserted in international trade and in new foreign policies and trade negotiations. Also, final discussion and conclusion about the fairness and constitutional international affairs and trade and humanitarian issues that constantly emerge and challenge it regarding the embargo situation. So yeah, that's a brief explanation of my literature review and what the future project will be. Once again, my name is Roberto Viana, and if you guys have any questions, you can contact and email me through our inbox. And thanks very much for your attention, and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.